What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my MLB Week 3 power rankings. And as you can see, there are some teams making some huge jumps and falls this week. Red Sox, especially after having an abysmal week last week, they're falling 10 spots. Mariners looking good, playing some good baseball heading into this week as they move up 10 spots. But we'll talk about the stories of the week. Spencer Torkelson is on fire for the Tigers. 5 home runs so far this year. He didn't do that till I think it was June last year. Kyron Paris as well for the Angels, playing some really good baseball and could be a bright spot this year for them. Braves struggling still. I think that 0-7 start could do them in. The Twins could possibly be firing Rocco Baldelli after their awful start to the year, bad finish to last year. So I wouldn't be shocked if he gets fired midway through the year if this thing goes south. The Reds are starting to figure it out, and could they be a sleeper team for the playoffs? I think it is still early, but having Terry Francona being the manager for that team, I think that this Cincinnati team needs to be taken seriously. Padres are still on fire, 13-3. And then the Dodgers, surprisingly enough, have lost 3 straight series, 30 through 26. And you get teams that probably you expect to be in this position. The Reds are still low, I guess you could say. I could move them up even more after beating San Francisco and Pittsburgh, but I need to see one more solid week against some better teams to really put them up there from my standpoint. Then you have the Pirates, A's, White Sox, and Rockies rounding it out. The White Sox beat Boston at home when Garrett Crochet came back and just dominated. That was their one loss. But the Pirates, 2-1, obviously against the Cardinals this week, and then everything else you can see there, nobody won any other series. So that's why these teams here are at the bottom. 21 through 25. I think the Braves are going to slowly climb their way back up into the top half of the rankings. It's going to take some time, but they could do it this week. Maybe steal one in Toronto and then get a series win at home. They could be right back into it. And then, if that's the case, they're 8-13, only 5 games under 500. So, you got to get your wins when you can get them. The Cardinals at 22, a good series win against Philly, but the Pittsburgh series lost that one. So they're moving up only one spot. The Twins are falling 3 spots, and this team, like I said, spiraling downhill already. They got the Mets this week and the Braves, and they could go 1-5, and this thing could get real ugly for them. The Marlins, however, are 8-7. They beat the Nationals, lost to the Mets, but good series for the Marlins. They're a sneaky team that's been playing some good ball right now, and same with Nationals as well, beating the Dodgers in a series and then losing to Miami on the road. But I think both those teams are going to be a lot tougher than they were last year to play in the NL East, and I think that the NL East is just going to beat up on each other this year. 16 through 20. Now, you got the Royals, Brewers, Red Sox, Angels, and Rays. All 5 of these teams are falling back some spots here. And it's just some other teams are playing some really good baseball right now. Obviously, you can see there the Angels still went 3-3, Rays went 3-3, Brewers went 3-3, and then the Royals went 4-3. The only bad team really in this spot is the Red Sox going 2-5 against Toronto at home, then on the White Sox on the road. So these teams, I think, are just floating around 500, and more than likely, these teams will kind of do that for this year. Probably not the Angels because they always falter when it gets to May, and then their season's pretty much over. But I think the Royals and the Red Sox, out of all these teams, are going to be the teams that could possibly not be 500 teams when it's all said and done. 11 through 15, and talk about hot starts. I think that's none of these teams yet. None of them yet, but I think we can see it in the Guardians and the Mariners really starting to figure it out after slow starts, especially for the Mariners, beating their division rivals, the Astros and the Rangers at home, and it was in dominant fashion. Like it wasn't just scraping by. They won fair and square, played some really good baseball at home, especially this early in the season when those games matter. Those are huge wins for the Mariners, and that's what did them in last year is they just couldn't beat teams in their division. So it's always good to see them doing that. Same for the Guardians as well, getting back on track, getting to 8-7. They got a tough series in Baltimore this week. Both of those teams need those wins this early, so that'll be one to tune into. Then the Blue Jays splitting with Baltimore, going on the road in Boston, taking 3 of 4 makes them jump up a little bit. Then the Astros, 3-3, just got jumped by the Mariners. My top 10 here, 6 through 10, Cubs, Tigers, Diamondbacks, Rangers, and Yankees. Rangers and Yankees fall after some bad weeks, and then the Diamondbacks, Tigers, and Cubs all jump up 3 spots after 2-1, or sorry, taking 2 of 3 in both series this week. And I think Chicago has the best one against the Rangers and in LA against the Dodgers. Diamondbacks, some good teams that are very likely playoff teams or just missed. Then the Tigers taking 2 of 3 from the Yankees at home was a great series for them. And then the Twins game, obviously the only game they lost, they just couldn't figure it out. But the Tigers are playing some really good baseball right now and looking like they are going to command the AL Central here. 1 through 5, you get 3 NL West teams, and that's because this division is on fire. And not even just that, all 5 of these teams are National League teams. But the Padres, Dodgers, Giants from the NL West playing some really good baseball. Even the Dodgers last week, bad week. Like I said, they've lost the last 3 series, but they're still hanging around there. 2-4, obviously, they're still taking one. They're not getting swept. Giants, however, lost that one in Cincinnati, which was kind of a head scratcher after how good they've been playing. But then they responded well going into New York and taking 2 of 3. Now, this week they're in Philly to keep that road trip going. Then they fly all the way back across the country to face the Angels on the road, then return home next week. But I think the team that needs to be talked about the most is the Padres. And I think that's because this team, what they're doing right now, didn't really add anything. Lots of offseason rumors of trading Dylan Cease and making maybe shuffling up that team. And they didn't do anything really spectacular in the offseason in my eyes, but here they are, and I think they knew what they had. They're 13-3. They get the Cubs in an early series, and I think that'll be a huge series for them. Then they go into Houston as well. So Padres have a little tougher test this week, as you could see, compared to last week. But teams I haven't talked about yet are the Mets and the Phillies. Mets are playing some good ball, 10-5. I think they're going to gel, and they're going to do that for the whole year. It's going to be one of those things where they're still kind of figuring out how each other's tendencies, play styles, especially adding a superstar like Juan Soto, does to a lineup. And a team that has been like that is the Phillies. You know, when they added Bryce Harper, this team took some time to get used to it. But now I think it's year 4 or 5 with Harper. Um, and this team I was kind of surprised that they lost in Atlanta after how bad they've been playing. And then they responded with even another loss in St. Louis. And you can make the case where the Giants could be ahead of both these teams, but the Giants losing that series at home in Cincinnati just kind of hanging with me a little more. But those Phillies play the Giants this week, like I said, and that's a huge series this early in the season when both these teams are playing some really good baseball. But that's going to be it for my week 3 power rankings. Check back next week to see where your team ranks. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.